You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Privacy by design is the philosophy and practice of embedding privacy protections into technology from the very beginning, not as an afterthought. Rather than bolting on controls after a system is built, this approach ensures that privacy requirements are woven into every stage of the lifecycle, from initial requirements gathering through architecture, coding, deployment, operations, and eventual decommissioning. The goal is to proactively prevent privacy harms rather than reactively patch them. In the cloud era, where systems are complex and data flows cross multiple jurisdictions, privacy by design acts as a compass that aligns engineering decisions with ethical and legal obligations. By placing privacy on equal footing with performance and usability, it transforms compliance from a burden into an integral aspect of trustworthy digital service delivery. The principles of lawfulness, fairness, and transparency sit at the heart of modern privacy regimes, and privacy by design operationalizes them. Lawfulness requires a valid legal basis for processing, whether consent, contractual necessity, legitimate interest, or regulatory obligation. Fairness demands that processing respects individual expectations and avoids exploitative or deceptive practices. Transparency requires clear, intelligible communication about what data is collected, why it is needed, and how it will be used. In practice, this means publishing accessible privacy notices, avoiding hidden clauses, and providing dashboards where individuals can see and manage their data. These principles counteract the temptation to treat data as an unlimited resource and instead root system design in respect for the people behind the data. Purpose limitation enforces the idea that data must only be collected and processed for specific, explicit, and legitimate reasons. Once declared, those purposes constrain use. Organizations cannot repurpose data later without new justification or user consent. In cloud architectures, this often requires technical enforcement, such as restricting data pipelines to predefined workflows and preventing developers from redirecting data into unrelated analytics projects. Purpose limitation is about honoring promises. If users give data for account creation, it cannot quietly be used for targeted advertising. This principle ensures individuals can trust that disclosures are limited to contexts they understand and approve. It curbs the slippery slope where collected information gradually expands into unanticipated uses. Data minimization complements purpose limitation by insisting that organizations collect and retain only what is necessary. Just because a system can capture hundreds of attributes does not mean it should. Each unnecessary field collected increases the risk surface without corresponding benefit. For example, an e-commerce platform may require a shipping address but not a social security number. Minimization disciplines both design and operations, nudging engineers to question whether every field in a form is essential and whether every log entry must include identifiers. In cloud systems, minimization also conserves resources, reducing storage and transmission costs. The principle teaches restraint. Privacy is not about hoarding data, but about using only what is required to deliver value. Accuracy is another pillar, requiring that organizations take reasonable steps to keep personal data correct and current. Inaccurate data can harm individuals, whether by denying services, misidentifying risks, or spreading false information. Cloud systems often rely on synchronization across multiple databases, making accuracy a matter of both policy and technical architecture. Automated validation, user-facing update portals, and reconciliation routines ensure that stale or incorrect records do not linger. Accuracy serves both fairness and utility. Accurate data benefits individuals by representing them truthfully and benefits organizations by improving decision quality. It reminds us that privacy is not only about restricting data but also about stewarding it responsibly once it is in hand. Storage limitation imposes boundaries on how long personal data may be retained. Information should not live forever in cloud storage simply because it is cheap and easy to keep. Instead, retention periods must be tied to the purpose of collection and legal obligations. For example, tax records may be retained for 7 years under law, while marketing lists might only be justified for months. Implementing storage limitation in practice often involves lifecycle automation that archives, anonymizes, or deletes records once their clock runs out. The principle protects individuals from long-term exposure and organizations from liability. Data left without purpose can become toxic. Storage limitation ensures that information leaves systems when it is no longer needed. Integrity and confidentiality require that personal data be safeguarded against unauthorized processing, accidental loss, or unlawful disclosure. Security and privacy intersect most directly here, with controls like encryption, strong authentication, and network segmentation serving as practical enablers of confidentiality. In cloud settings, where data may travel across providers and networks, ensuring integrity also means guarding against tampering or corruption. Confidentiality protects individuals' trust, while integrity ensures that the data remains faithful to reality. These twin requirements form the technical backbone of privacy. Without them, lawful collection and retention are moot, because compromised data ceases to be trustworthy. Privacy by design insists that security is not optional. It is integral to protecting people's rights. Accountability rounds out the principles by requiring organizations to demonstrate governance, records, and reviews of their privacy practices. It is not enough to claim compliance. Organizations must be able to prove it through documentation, audits, and ongoing oversight. Accountability frameworks may include internal privacy boards, external certifications, and regular risk assessments. In cloud environments, accountability often requires shared responsibility models, where both provider and customer document their roles. The principle ensures privacy does not exist only as policy rhetoric, but as a verifiable practice. Accountability embodies the shift from reactive excuses to proactive assurance, anchoring privacy in structures that can withstand regulatory and public scrutiny. Records of processing activities, often abbreviated ROPA, bring accountability into tangible form. These documents describe what data is processed, for what purposes, who receives it, and how long it is retained. ROPA provide regulators with a snapshot of organizational practices, but they also serve as internal governance tools, ensuring that business units remain aligned with privacy principles. For cloud-based services, ROPA often span multiple providers and sub-processors, mapping not just internal workflows, but external dependencies. Maintaining them requires collaboration across legal, IT, and business functions. ROPA transform abstract promises into structured inventories, making privacy both transparent and manageable at scale. Consent is one of the most recognized, yet often misunderstood, bases for processing. True consent must be freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous. That means no pre-checked boxes, no bundled agreements hidden in terms of service, and no coercion through denial of essential services. In privacy by design, consent is operationalized through clear user interfaces, granular choices, and the ability to withdraw at any time. Cloud systems implement consent through preference centers, APIs, and access controls that respect user selections. The rigor of consent matters. Weak or deceptive practices, sometimes called dark patterns, may invalidate the basis for processing entirely, exposing organizations to both reputational and regulatory risk. Parental consent requirements add another layer when processing data about children. Laws like the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA in the United States, or GDPR's rules for minors, establish age thresholds where parental or guardian authorization is mandatory. Designing for compliance means implementing age verification, parental consent workflows, and additional safeguards for minors. For cloud services that attract younger audiences, this becomes a central architectural requirement rather than a niche concern. Privacy by design ensures that protections for children are not bolted on later but embedded from the start, recognizing their particular vulnerability. By respecting parental consent laws, organizations affirm their role as responsible stewards of children's digital footprints. Pseudonymization offers a technique for reducing risk by replacing identifiers with surrogate values. Unlike anonymization, pseudonymization preserves the ability to relink under controlled conditions, making it valuable for analytics, testing, or cross-system correlation. For example, patient identifiers in healthcare research may be pseudonymized to protect privacy while still allowing follow-up studies. Privacy by Design integrates pseudonymization into data pipelines, ensuring that identifiers are kept separate from sensitive content. The effect is layered protection. Even if one data set is compromised, the ability to connect it back to individuals remains constrained. Pseudonymization is a practical embodiment of minimization, reducing exposure while preserving utility. Anonymization goes further by attempting to eliminate identifiability altogether. Proper anonymization removes or alters attributes until the risk of re-identification is acceptably low for the intended use case. This may involve techniques like generalization, suppression, or noise injection. True anonymization is difficult to achieve, as auxiliary datasets can often be combined to re-identify individuals. Still, when executed carefully, anonymization enables valuable data uses such as open research or large-scale analytics without exposing personal risk. Privacy by Design treats anonymization as both a technical and governance tool, applying it only where residual risk is tolerable and ensuring it is periodically reviewed as new re-identification techniques emerge. Data Protection Impact Assessments, also known as Privacy Impact Assessments, provide structured evaluations of high-risk processing activities. They ask, what harms could result from this processing and what mitigations can reduce those harms? DPIAs consider not only technical safeguards but also human impacts, such as discrimination, chilling effects, or misuse. In cloud systems, DPIAs may be required before deploying new services that handle sensitive categories of data or introduce innovative technologies like AI profiling. By documenting risks and mitigations upfront, DPIAs operationalize accountability and foster trust. They make privacy a visible, deliberate part of governance, not an invisible afterthought. Privacy notices complete the cycle of transparency by communicating clearly to individuals what is happening with their data. Effective notices are concise, intelligible, and layered. High-level summaries give immediate clarity, while detailed sections provide depth for those who want it. Cloud services must publish notices that cover not only their own processing, but also the involvement of sub-processors and international transfers. A well-crafted privacy notice is not just a compliance artifact, it is a communication tool that builds trust. When users feel informed, they are more likely to engage confidently with services. Privacy by Design ensures that notices are not buried in fine print but integrated into the user experience in ways that foster understanding and respect. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Default privacy settings embody the principle of giving users the most protective stance unless they intentionally choose otherwise. Instead of requiring individuals to opt out of invasive practices, systems should begin with minimal data collection, limited sharing, and reduced visibility. For instance, a social media platform might make profiles private by default, leaving it up to the user to decide whether to open them more broadly. This approach aligns with regulatory expectations and builds trust, as users feel they are not tricked into exposing more than they intended. Default settings are powerful because most users rarely change them. By engineering privacy-friendly defaults, organizations shape behavior in a way that honors autonomy and minimizes unnecessary risk without creating friction in the user experience. Purpose binding translates the principle of purpose limitation into technical enforcement. It ensures that data collected for one legitimate reason cannot be quietly repurposed for another without explicit authorization. Binding is achieved through architectural constraints, such as tagging data with purpose identifiers and restricting its flow to approved pipelines. For example, customer email addresses collected for shipping notifications should not be automatically redirected to marketing campaigns unless consent is obtained. Purpose binding requires close collaboration between developers and compliance teams, making sure that workflows reflect legal commitments. It functions like guardrails on a road. Data can only travel down permitted lanes, reducing the chance of diversion into uses that would breach privacy promises or laws. Access control and least privilege principles are fundamental to privacy by design, ensuring that only those who truly need to handle personal data are able to do so. This is not only a security safeguard, but also a privacy measure, as it limits unnecessary exposure. In cloud environments, access control means using identity and access management systems to enforce role-based permissions, time-limited grants, and detailed logging of access attempts. The philosophy mirrors the idea that just because someone works in a hospital does not mean they should view every patient record. Least privilege narrows visibility, ensuring that each person or service only interacts with the smallest slice of data needed to perform their function. Encryption, tokenization, and masking serve as technical shields that protect personal data across its lifecycle. Encryption ensures confidentiality in transit and at rest, making stolen data unreadable without keys. Tokenization replaces sensitive identifiers with surrogates, reducing exposure while maintaining system functionality. Masking obfuscates fields for specific roles, ensuring that employees or systems only see partial values when full access is unnecessary. Together, these techniques embed privacy into the infrastructure, ensuring that even when data must move, it does so under layers of defense. Privacy by design emphasizes that these methods are not optional add-ons but core architectural components that operationalize confidentiality and minimization. Logging and audit trails strike a balance between accountability and privacy. They must record who accessed personal data, when, and for what purpose, creating an evidence trail for oversight. At the same time, logs themselves must be carefully managed to avoid becoming a secondary source of sensitive data leakage. Effective designs capture essential metadata while redacting or pseudonymizing content. For example, a log may show that a support engineer accessed a customer record but not reveal the customer's full credit card number. This dual focus ensures that monitoring remains robust without multiplying risk. Audit trails serve as the memory of a system, ensuring that privacy promises are not only declared but verifiable through evidence. Data Subject Access Requests, or DSARs, operationalize individual rights by enabling people to see, correct, export, or delete their data. Privacy by design ensures that systems are built with DSAR processes in mind, making data retrievable within statutory deadlines. Cloud environments complicate this, as data may span multiple services, providers, and formats. Automation, centralized request portals, and standardized APIs become crucial to meeting obligations efficiently. Without design foresight, DSARs can devolve into time-consuming manual hunts across systems. When implemented well, DSAR processes showcase transparency in action, empowering individuals to exercise control over their digital identities while ensuring organizations remain accountable to regulatory mandates. Vendor management becomes a cornerstone of privacy by design in the cloud, where third-party providers play integral roles. Data processing agreements, or DPIAs, formalize expectations for how sub-processors handle personal data, codifying requirements for security, retention, and breach notification. But contracts alone are insufficient. Organizations must maintain ongoing oversight through audits, questionnaires, and transparency reports. Vendors become extensions of the privacy posture, and weak links in the supply chain can undermine compliance. Privacy by design insists on rigorous vendor governance so that outsourcing services never equates to outsourcing responsibility. The accountability of controllers remains intact, and proactive vendor oversight ensures trust extends beyond organizational boundaries. International transfers remain fraught with complexity, and privacy by design requires careful alignment with lawful mechanisms. Standard contractual clauses are the most widely used tools, embedding EU-approved terms into agreements for data moving to countries without adequacy status. Yet contracts must be paired with technical measures such as encryption and key residency to withstand scrutiny. Privacy by design means integrating these safeguards directly into architecture rather than treating them as legal afterthoughts. It also means designing monitoring systems that can prove data has not left intended regions without authorization. The interplay between contracts and technology demonstrates sovereignty-conscious design, where compliance and engineering mutually reinforce one another. Privacy testing and validation ensure that privacy principles are not merely aspirational but operational. Before a system reaches production, configurations must be reviewed, defaults tested, and failure modes examined. For instance, a test might confirm that anonymization scripts truly remove identifiers, or that default privacy settings reset correctly during upgrades. Privacy testing is comparable to quality assurance but focused on rights and safeguards rather than performance or functionality. By embedding this testing into continuous integration pipelines, organizations transform privacy from static policy into an active part of system validation. The result is greater confidence that promises made in design documents are consistently delivered in live environments. Differential privacy and k-anonymity represent advanced statistical methods that protect individuals while allowing meaningful analytics. Differential privacy introduces controlled noise into datasets, ensuring that no single individual can be re-identified even if attackers combine auxiliary information. K-anonymity requires that each record be indistinguishable from at least K1 others based on key attributes, reducing re-identification risk in shared datasets. These techniques are particularly useful in cloud environments where organizations seek to extract insights from large-scale data without violating privacy. Privacy by design encourages using such methods as complements to traditional controls, making sure that even aggregated analytics respect individual dignity and legal obligations. Incident response procedures are an essential extension of privacy by design. Even the most carefully architected systems may suffer breaches, and the speed and clarity of response determine both regulatory exposure and reputational impact. Privacy-conscious incident response includes triage, risk assessment, regulator and user notifications within legal deadlines, and remediation steps to prevent recurrence. Cloud architectures complicate this with multi-tenant environments and vendor dependencies, requiring clear contractual obligations and coordination. Privacy by design embeds these response mechanisms up front, ensuring that organizations do not scramble reactively but respond methodically. In practice, it means planning not just for prevention, but for accountability and resilience in the face of inevitable challenges. Training and awareness bring privacy from the realm of specialists into the daily actions of all staff. Engineers need to understand minimization and pseudonymization. Support staff must know DSAR handling protocols, and managers require awareness of lawful bases and retention limits. Awareness programs foster a culture where privacy is part of everyday decision-making rather than an isolated compliance exercise. Privacy by design cannot succeed if only a handful of professionals understand its principles. It thrives when embedded across the workforce. Like workplace safety programs, training ensures that privacy becomes a shared responsibility, reinforced through role-specific guidance and ongoing education. Metrics and reviews close the loop by ensuring continuous improvement. Organizations must measure how often DSARs are fulfilled on time, whether retention schedules are honored, and how frequently privacy incidents occur. Metrics also include consent rates, showing whether users feel empowered or pressured. Regular reviews use these metrics to recalibrate controls, update processes, and refine awareness programs. Privacy by design is not a one-time certification but an evolving practice, responding to new technologies, laws, and social expectations. Metrics act as the compass that keeps organizations on course, ensuring privacy goals remain actively pursued rather than drifting into neglect. Anti-patterns serve as reminders of what undermines privacy by design. Dark patterns that trick users into consenting, bundled agreements that force acceptance of unrelated processing, and indefinite retention without purpose all violate the spirit of privacy principles. These practices may seem expedient, but erode trust, invite regulatory scrutiny, and often collapse under legal review. Recognizing and avoiding anti-patterns requires both ethical commitment and operational discipline. Privacy by design is not just about adding protections, but about consciously rejecting manipulative or negligent practices. In a world where user trust is fragile, steering clear of anti-patterns is as vital as implementing positive controls. For exam preparation, learners must connect the philosophical foundations of privacy by design with practical measures in cloud architectures. Questions may present scenarios where students must recommend DPIAs, align consent mechanisms, or design systems that minimize data collection while still meeting business needs. Exam success depends on understanding how legal concepts like transparency, accountability, and minimization translate into encryption, access control, testing, and incident response. The focus is not only on memorizing principles, but on applying them in real-world cloud contexts, demonstrating the ability to bridge governance requirements with technical implementation. Privacy by design ultimately reimagines privacy as an engineering discipline rather than a compliance checkbox. By embedding safeguards into defaults, enforcing purpose binding, applying encryption and anonymization, and sustaining accountability through training and metrics, organizations operationalize privacy in daily practice. The outcome is lawful, minimal, and secure processing that respects individual rights while enabling legitimate business functions. Privacy by design ensures that compliance is sustainable, trust is reinforced, and systems are resilient to both technical and legal scrutiny. In sum, it transforms privacy from an abstract aspiration into a tangible, auditable, and continually improving reality within modern cloud architectures. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.